All right. Woo. Okay. Good morning, everyone. It's Katie, and I'm here for Coffee with Katie. I've got one of my favorite mugs today. It actually has a chip in it, but it came from one of my dearest friends, Jen Ichioto. If you're follow her on Instagram, she's amazing. She's one of my soul sisters. We connect, we gather, we take time to be with each other and in person as much as we can because she's in Michigan, but also on the phone. And I grabbed this mug today for a very special reason because today my message is a message that's been on my heart for a couple of months now, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And so I decided it was going to be the topic for our coffee chat today. And it is going to be about the wisdom and what happens when we actually gather together in person and share human contact, okay? I love this mug because it says, great friends are like stars. I'm going to read it this way because I can't read it backwards. You don't always see them, but you know they're always there, okay? So love this. If you've got your coffee, you've got your tea, your glass of wine, whatever floats your boat, grab it, and let's dive in to this topic. If you have questions as I'm going through this, please make sure you're popping them into the comments. I would love to make sure we answer your questions. If I can't get to them live, I promise, I will come back and comment on them later on. If you're watching this on Instagram and you want to come back and watch it later, it's only going to be there for 24 hours, but you can always pop it on over on my website, magicwithkatie.com. And eventually this will be a podcast. So you might be listening to this on your podcast while you're driving in the car or taking a run or whatever, who knows. We're just going to go with what we have right now. So the ancient wisdom of gathering. Okay. So I first had this realization, right? Because we have in us this inner knowing. I talked about that last week. But we have in us this inner knowing. It's the things that we already know, but they might be just below the surface. They might be in that subconscious space inside of us where it's like the inner knowledge, the inner knowing, but it's just below the surface and we haven't actually accessed it yet. And so once we start to bring it to the surface and bring awareness with it, that's when it becomes a conscious thought. And when we have a conscious thought, we can do something about it. So maybe there's something holding you back right now. Maybe you're not flowing in life the way you want it to. Maybe you're not flowing in your health or something like that. And you can't quite put your finger on it. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? You can't quite put your finger on it. And so that's because it's just below the surface, okay? It's in you, and it's just below the surface. And so we just got to figure out how to bring it to the awareness. So this was something that I had been rumbling with for a while, and I knew that it was there, and it all of a sudden started to surface, and it was in January and February when it started to come to the surface. And I had been getting this nudge, this voice of spirit, this nudge from God for a long time that I was supposed to create these spaces, these sacred spaces where women could come and gather and learn about all things magical, right? They could learn about what it meant to be an empath and what it meant to have a vibration and what it meant to just be a woman, that I was supposed to create these sacred spaces. And at the time, I didn't really understand fully and completely what that really meant. What did it mean for me to be creating these spaces? Was it part of the next step? I didn't know, but remember, trusting intuition. We got to always trust that. You're going to hear that over and over and over again from me in coffee chats, or if you're working with me in person or whatever. Trust, continue to trust, and know if you've got that feeling that it's right, just keep on moving. And so I started this thing called Goddess School. And I realized that Goddess School wasn't enough. That was the 3-hour crash course. Up to this point, we're in June of 2019, I have not taken that course online, but it is coming soon. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I want to go to Goddess School, hold tight. It is coming, just not yet. But Goddess School was this 3-hour crash course in energy basics and transformation and all of these things. But I found that when people came to this course, they still wanted more, and they wanted more monthly. And so after you completed Goddess School, I said, okay, we're going to have the monthly Goddess Gathering. And so we started to have this gathering, and it was a couple of months into this And I realized that there were people that were coming that on the surface, I thought they were friends. If I looked on Facebook, they were friends. If you saw them somewhere else, they were friends. They came to this class together as friends, but when we started taking things down deeper, when we started to scratch the surface and started to go deep into what was happening, I realized that a lot of them didn't know what was going on in other people's lives. And then I started to notice I was getting all of these people into this group that didn't know each other. Some knew each other, some didn't. And when I started to get people into this setting and into this group, the women didn't know how to interact with each other. It was like they didn't know how to start conversations. And so if that's you and this is bringing up some stuff for you, that's okay. That's my job. My job's to crack you open so that you can have this stuff come to the surface and so we can continue our transformation, right? Ooh, some of you out there are like, whoa, ooh, hitting the home run right here. And it's for some of you online right now and some of you that are going to be listening to the recording later. So, and that's okay. That's what I'm here for. So where was I at? Coffee, whatever. Okay, need more coffee today. So much good stuff, guys. So when we get right below the surface, we didn't have a place we weren't having a place to actually let go of our stuff. The stuff that was holding us down, the stuff that was like this backpack that was pulling us and weighing us down so much that we didn't know what to do with it. And so I realized that one of my missions, I was driving home from one of these events. It was a February night and it was like 10 degrees below zero, but I'm like, these women need to gather. I'm going to do this. I'm driving home and I started getting the message, Katie, you're supposed to teach them how to gather. That's part of your mission, is to teach the people how to gather again, because it's a lost art and we've forgotten how to do it. Sit with that one a minute. It's a lost art and we have forgotten how to gather. Okay, so let's back up. For thousands of years, women and men, and I'm going to really hone in on the women part, we've been gathering. Okay, if you've ever read The Red Tent, it's about the story of Dinah from the Bible, the wives of Jacob. Okay, from Genesis. We go all the way back to the beginning. And that is where we start this story of the women gathering. When women would have their monthly menstrual cycles, they would gather in a red tent to gather and bleed together. Okay, and it was their time to share their hopes and their dreams and the shit that was going on. Can you imagine living out in the middle of the desert and needing to go into a red tent where you would bleed every month? But also, do you know what that did? Do you know what the art of gathering did? It kept women's cycles together. Have you ever lived in a house with more than one woman? Chances are, if you live together, if you cycle, you will cycle together, right? Because when we get together and we gather as humans and we have human contact, it helps our health. It helps our bodies regulate in a profound way. And women, especially, it is helping regulate your hormones when you are around other women. It helps regulate your moods and emotions because you're not holding everything in and allowing your body to have so much stagnation that it can't even flow in physical or emotional or spiritual health. Gather together. And if they weren't gathering together in the red tent, they were gathering together at the well to collect water. They were gathering together around the fire in the evenings. Okay, so that goes all the way back, but I want you to think, as women have throughout time have gathered, right? And men would have their gathering place and women would have theirs, and they would gather together. And that human contact is something special. And it's something special that we've almost forgotten, okay? We've almost forgotten how to do this. And so we gather and we learn. I remember I grew up in a really small town, When I say small, 500 people, but I lived out in the middle of the cornfields. And so some of you might be listening because you know me from the cornfields. I was a mile away from the closest neighbor, but I remember my neighbors coming to visit my mom and my mom going to visit the neighbors, and they would sit around the kitchen table and they would sit with their cup of coffee and they would gather. Or my mom and her friends would gather and let all the kids run crazy, and they would share all their things with their cup of coffee, right? Or whatever it was. There's a ritual. That's why I wanted to have coffee chat, because there's such a ritual in coffee. It's part of the gathering, okay? I go back even further than that. My grandmother, they used to have things called clubs. Do anyone know what I'm talking about? And she was part of the East Club and the West Club. And in those clubs, the women would gather and they would share what was going on. And I'm going to get emotional on this because, well, one, she's in this room with me right now. And two is, this is forgotten. Women don't know how to do this. We invite somebody over and they're just so busy they can't come. Or when we want to gather, it's with wine because we have so much stress that we have to drink alcohol to combat the stress that's going on in our lives. Or that's so we think. We all need the safe container to process our emotions. And I am not against having a drink or two, but is it being used excessively when we have to go home and have a bottle of wine every night? And that is our relaxation for the day. There's something wrong. It's not okay. There's other ways to have the safe container. There's other ways to have the safe container, and that container is being lost. And it's being lost because we have an influx in social media and everything is delivered at our door, okay? We don't know our neighbors. Now, I actually live in a small town in Polk City, Iowa, where I actually do know several of my neighbors. But when I lived in California, it was a society completely different. I had people that they would come home from work. They would open the garage door, they would drive their car into the garage, they would shut the garage door, and they would get out before they actually got out of their car, so that you never actually had to see them and they didn't have to actually communicate with you. They didn't have to communicate with you. So how is that? What's happening to us as a society? Why have we stopped gathering, right? It's because we've put the walls up. We've put these giant walls up around us because we don't want to allow anybody in. We also, again, we have everything delivered to the door. We have social media. And so we think we don't actually have to go to the store because everything can be delivered, or we don't actually have to go out and do everything because we could learn everything online, right? Okay, that is true, and there is an advantage to it, and technology is beautiful. But as Rob Bell says, it's the internet. It's the internet, and it's affecting us. Now more than ever, women's hormones are off. And do you know what associated disease comes with that? Anything hormonally related, okay? I can't say like, hey, I'm not the one to say there's probably no science behind this. There's no studies, but I know it. It's that inner knowing, and you know it too. This is affecting us more and more and more, and it affects us more than we realize. The other thing that happens is that when we go on social media, we get into our brain, it's a constant comparison, okay? So then it puts the wall up even more because Becky might have her perfect house and her perfect life and her perfect whatever bullshit that we see on social media, and we don't think that we can relate to her. Because she always looks perfect. She never says an F-bomb. Oh my goodness, she's got the perfect car and the perfect house, and she's got the perfect body. So I'm not going to talk to her. I'm going to put the wall up even more because I don't think I have anything in common with her. What the reality is, you probably have a lot in common with Becky because she's putting the bullshit story out there because she doesn't have it all put together. It's one of the reasons I promise to always bring you the truth. And some days I'll have my hair and makeup done, and some days I'll be in my tub, and some days I'll be crying, and some days, because that's life. That's life, okay? Who are you sharing that with? Who are you sharing that with? Who are you learning to gather with? Studies show that we have you should have a circle of 5 friends. Now that number has actually decreased some, but the studies are actually showing that it doesn't necessarily mean that we're becoming too isolated and hermited. That's what they actually thought when they first started studying this phenomenon of us becoming more and more hermited. But they're still seeing that people have closer friends, right? But it still is affecting the way we live and the way we interact. Okay, so 5 friends. Who are your 5 friends? Write down who are the top 5 people that you spend the most time with. And if you're on here because you're wanting to improve yourself and you're wanting to transform, those 5 friends are making a huge impact in what you do and how you say it. Okay, so it doesn't have to mean that your person has to be the neighbor next door that you're going to always be able to have coffee with. Because like I said, my dear friend that I got this cup from, she lives in Michigan. I have another dear friend that lives in New York City and travels all over the place. I have another dear friend, Desiree, that lives, I don't know, she's always all over the place. Okay? But we still connect. We still connect, and maybe we have our cup of coffee or whatever, and we connect on the phone, and we connect as much as we can in person, and we tell each other what's going on. The point is that these people in this gathering, it doesn't only affect our physical, it's also affecting our emotional too. It's affecting our emotional because, well, you can't have physical healing without emotional healing, and no emotional healing without physical healing. You know the thing, you got it. But it affects our emotional, right? Because we're putting the barriers up and we're stuffing the things down more and more and more, and we're not getting them out. When you start to learn how to gather, it takes a layer off and it brings you together. Okay. So I realize you guys probably, you're like, Katie, we got it. We need to gather. But then this fear starts to creep in, because if you're following along with me, you know I'm an empath and I feel all the feels. And sometimes it's really hard for me to be around the people. And it might be really hard for you to be around the people. And you might feel all the feels. And so that's one of the reasons you're like, I don't want to be around the people because I could feel all their things. I'm going to go into that. And then maybe you're like, I don't even know what the conversation starters are. When I start to see women start to gather that don't know each other, the awkwardness makes me sad. It makes me almost cry, because we forgot to even know how to talk to each other, because we get so hermited in that we don't even know what to say. We don't even know what to say. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of tips on that. Okay, so first of all, if you're an empath, you need to go to my website and you need to grab my empath guide, or if you're on Insta, you can go over into my profile, grab my empath guide, okay? Lots of tips in there on learning how to protect yourself as an empath. If you're an empath, it's like you're going out into, it's like you're a sponge, you're a dish sponge and a cleaning sponge, and it's like you're putting yourself into the dirty dishwater, the cold, dirty dishwater, every single time you're around people. And that can be online, that can be in person, that can be whatever, okay? And so what our goal is as an empath is to learn how to put ourselves in a little plastic baggie. So then when we go in the dirty dishwater, which is, being outside around people, then we don't have to feel everybody. And so we can use essential oils to help with that. Melaleuca Touch is hands down my absolute favorite oil to use on that. I'm just going to put it on my heart, put it on my up and down my forearms, maybe on the back of my neck. I always have that one in my purse with me no matter where I go. And also the guide is full of that. Okay. So start to understand, start to go, also start to pick places that really resonate with you. And so if you're curious more about energy and things like that, or if you love yoga, or if you love, like, get outside, also finding activities. We're in summer right now. Find activities that you can get outside to do, because if you are an empath, that will help keep you charged and grounded, and you won't feel as many people when you're around those people. Okay. So learn how to gather by doing that. Okay. The second part, okay, is conversation starters, right? Maybe you don't know what to say to somebody, because you're not going to all of a sudden walk up to somebody unless you're in one of my retreat settings where I'm prompting and I've created a space for you to be like, release all the things you need to release. But most of the time, you're going to have to start to build the relationship. That's not going to start with, hey, what do you got holding you back, right? Or what's going on below your surface, okay? It's going to start with some other stuff. And so one of my colleagues taught me something called the Ford conversation. Ford, family, occupation, recreation, dreams, okay? So super easy to remember, Ford conversation, family, occupation, recreation, dreams. So maybe you say, if it's like a new person and you're at a mingle, because if you're getting out together and you're finding outside activities to do, you're going to have to talk to people and you might not know everybody there. So Ford conversation is great. You start to talk about their family, ask, like, how many kids do you have? Those kinds of things. Occupation, what do you do? Recreation, what do you like to do for fun? What's your favorite thing to do? Dreams, what are your dreams? So you kind of move through that in a sequence. And that is like my biggest, like, hey, super easy peasy. This is how you can start to do this, okay? So the next thing that we have is, so what do you talk about? That's what you talk about, okay? And then how do we find these events? Look online. Facebook is full of them. I'm in direct sales, okay? I am in the top of my network marketing game. I have had to learn how to network. And actually for me, I'm also a relator. And so it's actually, this is something that comes second nature to me, but I understand, I've learned how to actually teach this concept because I know it's not easy for everybody. It's not innate in everybody like it is me. So what you can do, okay, what you can do is you can find these events, okay? I'm in network marketing. Do you know how many times I ask people, come on over to my house and, learn about essential oils? Or like tomorrow night, I'm having a spa party and it's spa and wine. Like we're hardly talking about oils. It's just it's a way to get women together as summer starts, okay? Go, right? I would say 90% of people that invite you, they don't have any intention that you actually have to purchase anything. They just want you to come. They want you to get out of the house. So the next time somebody invites you to something, say yes. Don't say no. Say yes. I don't care what your preconceived notions are of what you're going to be doing, but say yes. That's one of the things I love the most about being in network marketing is that all the beautiful people I get to meet because they said yes. And I just was in Kansas City and I travel around all over the country sharing oils with people and training people on how to do the same thing. And one of the best things that has come from this business, what fills me up the most, is the coffee table conversations, right? It's, hey, let's meet up for coffee. Let's get to know each other. Take a limb. If you're not confident going to somebody else's house, say, hey, let's meet at Starbucks. There's not going to be a psycho person at Starbucks. You can always look at your phone and say, hey, I got to get out of here. Okay, so my point is, when people invite you to do something, do something. Sometimes it's going to church. Sometimes it's going to a gong bath. Sometimes wherever you do, find something and go outside of your comfort zone, okay? Now, before I wrap it up, I want to talk about one more thing, and we're going to go back and we're going to circle back just a little bit. You're only as strong as your 5 closest friends, okay? So a lot of times, if you are in this period of transformation, and a lot of you that follow me you're in this transformation, you're shifting vibrations, you're wanting to get into a higher frequency, you're wanting something different for your life, you might have to find new circles of friends. The friends that you had 20 years ago might not be the friends that you're going to hang out with today, okay? The friends that you had 3 years ago might not be the friends that you're going to hang out with today, all right? So if you're finding that those 5 friends that you have that you spend the most time with are dragging you down, go out and seek other people. Now more than ever, there's so many ways out there. There's Meetup, there's Facebook event space or whatever they call it. There's somebody always inviting you to something. Okay, so your 5 closest people, who are they? Do you have the confidant, right? Do you have that person that no matter what you're going through, you can talk to and you can get it out? Or are you keeping everything stuffed inside? Okay, that is the purpose of the gathering. The gathering is to get us together. It's the human contact. Okay, we're not going to be Tom Hanks in that movie where he's out in the middle of nowhere with the ball, okay? We all need somebody. Don't isolate yourself. Allow your walls to come down. and learn how to gather again. You all know how to do it. It's an ancient way. It's something inside of you that has never gone away. It's in you, and you can do it. I'm going to close with this. So I've been doing these goddess gatherings now since January. And last month I had 2 girls come, and they actually came because of Facebook ads. When I first started, they came to Goddess School with Facebook ads. 2 different goddess schools, but then they've come to the goddess gathering every month. And they had no idea who each other was ahead of time. And through this and through conversation and through coming to a space where they could be vulnerable, they have connected. And last month, it was a couple weeks ago, they started talking and they started chatting. And they realized that they lived like a mile away from each other. They weren't even that far apart from each other. And so they made plans to get together for coffee. And they learned how to gather again, right? They got out of their comfort zone. And I told both of them, I said, I'm so very, very proud of you, because our shifts and our transformations come in all different ways. And they were willing to go out of their comfort zone by answering a Facebook ad for an event from a crazy lady with blonde hair that talks about angels being in the room with her. And they didn't even know me, but they trusted me enough to come to my space together. And now they're becoming friends. And I'm pretty sure they're going to be lifelong friends, because they went somewhere where they both had an interest. Okay. And they're learning the ancient way of gathering. Okay. So we're going to wrap it up with, find something to do, or call up that friend that's been bugging you to go to coffee, and put yourself as a priority this week. The ancient wisdom is inside of you. It's always been there. Don't miss out on the connection of other human beings, and learn how to go to the red tent or the well or the fire pit or the kitchen table and learn how to gather again. Because when you do, the magic that will happen in your spiritual, emotional, and mental health, well, it's going to be magical. Thank you, everyone. It's been an honor spending time with you. Let's do one more big giant breath, and let's clear all of your fears around this. Let's clear all of the stuff that's been coming up. It's all good. It's so good. Again, thank you for spending time with me on Coffee with Katie. Please make sure to share this with somebody that you think could benefit. If you're catching this on one of the live versions, you can always go to my website, magicwithkatie.com/coffee chats, and you'll find all of the recordings from this series there. I'll see you again next week for another juicy topic, and have a wonderful week going out and gathering.